The Mercedes AMG S63 is back for 2023 after a brief absence, and it now wears the E-Performance badge, which is of course means that it's a plug-in hybrid. We're gonna talk about the design of the new S63 from the front, side, and rear, and also the interior, of course. And I want to ask you if you think this has the same presence and confidence as the previous generation S63, and I'm gonna let you know what I think about that too. But when it comes to power, the new 2023 S63 definitely has that covered, because according to Mercedes, the big luxury sedan has a combined 791 horsepower and a massive 1,055 pound-feet of torque from the twin-turbo V8. Yes, we still have a V8 in the S-Class. Not a V12 though, but still V8 is not that bad. And it's combined with an electric motor, and this gives it a 0 to 60 time, this big massive sedan, of just 3.2 seconds and a limited top speed of 180 miles per hour. So they raised the standard limited top speed from 155 back in the day up until pretty recently. I guess now the new standard is 180 miles per hour. And the S63 also comes with 4 regeneration levels. Level 1 is more for coasting, while level 4 effectively gives you 1 pedal driving, and it can recharge the battery by up to 90 kilowatts. For the wheels, as you know, very important for a car. And for the new 2023 S-Class, you can have S63, you can have it in 21-inch, different variations to choose from, which I'm going to show you right now. So have a look at this new beauty, the S63 2023. So we have, I'm not sure that we've had this before. So we have almost a Audi Shadowline version of the new S63 up here. You can see that everything in the front end is blacked out. Even these detail in the bottom are all blacked out. While you also have a version of the S63 where you can have it in more of a, I would say, traditional S-Class fashion with a bunch of chrome in the front end. And the thing with this is you even have body-colored wings in the lower part. So this intake, this chamfer that we have right next to the intake, is even body colored, I guess, because this is a white car and this right here looks like it is white. So I guess it's gonna be whatever color you have on the car, and I'm not really sure about this treatment. It looks almost like a light Kardashian styling S63 already from factory, even though this looks a lot more elegant. But still, it feels a little weird, because if it is an S63, you want to have it be sporty. At least that's what I think. Otherwise, you might as well buy the normal S-Class. But looking at this, compare this design and look at the previous generation S-Class down here. Do you think that this has the same kind of presence and confidence as the previous generation, or even elegance? For me, in the front end, I don't think so, because we have very narrow headlights, as you can see here, and they don't have really a connection to the grille, not even in height or in shape. It feels like these are two different separate units been designed by two different designers, while in the previous generation you have a connection between these two, and you also have this more traditional Mercedes grille that has these angles. On the new one, we have a bunch of different angles. We have an angle at the top, then at the middle it turns down and goes into almost an ellipse shape of the grille. It still looks really cool, but for me, I just think this looks so beautiful and so elegant, and feels more like an S-Class front fascia than the current generation. One detail I also think that they should have kept for the current generation S-Class is to have the emblem right here, have that on top of the hood instead of having them in the middle like we have on a lot of previous Mercedes coupes and smaller models. The S-Class has always had, the S-Class sedan at least, has always had the emblem like this, proudly positioned up there on the top of the hood. Looking at the side view, here we can see, look at the wheels, the two different wheel options that we have. Same thing here. We have the more elegant, classy, I would say, luxurious version up top, and then we have the sporty version, the blacked out version at the bottom. One thing I really like about the new S-Class is the simple line flow. I've said this before, the bigger the model in the model range, the more restrained the design needs to be, because this is the big brother. It's not supposed to be shouty in its design, it's supposed to be graceful and elegant, and I think Mercedes have done a fantastic job with the new S-Class in that regard, because we have this nice sharp shoulder going from one end all the way back to the other unbroken, and then we have this line at the bottom as well going into the bumper and then wrapping around to the other side as well, creating a really nice line flow all around the car. Honestly, I'm not sure which one I would pick. If I would pick the chromed out luxury version of the new S63 or the blacked out more aggressive sporty version, I think I would probably go with the sporty version, because as I said, otherwise I would just buy a normal S-Class if I wanted to have a luxury feel for it. But I wanted to just throw in the old S-Class here and ask you the same thing. In side view, do you think it has a similar presence, a better presence? Does it feel more or less confident than the previous generation? I just love this generation S-Class. I don't know why. I think it has to do with, it just has a more bossy feel, a stronger feel. Specifically, when you look at the front end graphics, they're larger, the headlights feel more solid, and they do so in the rear as well, which we're gonna have a look at in a second. But when it comes to the side view, that's the view that I think I prefer the new 2023 S-Class, just because of the simplicity. We have a little bit more styling here in the previous generation, for example with the shoulder line being broken right here, but for the graphics I definitely prefer the previous generation S-Class. So let's have a look at the rear view before finally we have a look at the interior and what's going on there. So this is probably the view I think the new S-Class lacks confidence the most. I've made a video on this right when this came out. I can link it down in the description, where I'll talk exactly about the graphic relationships between the different features that we have here, the different elements, and how they kind of look a little weak in my opinion, specifically for an S-Class. An S-Class is supposed to be the big boss. It's supposed to have this planted, heavy stance to it. It doesn't necessarily have to be heavy, but the look of it needs to have this presence to it, and I think that's lacking with these graphics that we have right here. Still a very gorgeous, beautiful design. It could be a nice E-Class, but for an S-Class I want more presence and more bossiness than we have right here. But one thing that really surprised me here, that I don't understand with this blacked out version of the S63, for example, look at the front end. We have just a tiny bit chrome around the grille and a little trim piece of chrome. I think this is chrome, I'm not really sure. But then in the rear end we have the same kind of treatment. Everything is blacked out except for a chrome piece down here, and then we have a chrome piece, trim piece that goes right above the headlights and in between the headlights as well. I guess it still gives it that luxury feel, because you kind of want to have maybe a little bit of chrome somewhere on the S-Class, but I think they should have blacked all of that out and just kept the chrome for this luxurious version of the S63 that we have up here. Just a tiny detail. I still love both of these wheels. I think even though these are chromed or polished aluminum, I think they look fantastic. I actually think for an S-Class, I would think that these suit better than these high-performance sporty wheels that we have on this other version down here. But looking down now at the previous generation S-Class, again, asking you the question, do you think it has the same confidence and presence as the current S-Class? And this is really where you can see the difference in the bossiness of the S-Class design. This just looks super solid with these beautiful graphics here, going in, flowing nicely, and creating this foundation for the rear end graphics. Have a nice curvature in the deck lid, and just having the graphics being more vertical in height. This is a bigger graphic than we have here. This is more horizontal, creating more of a wider look for this, a narrower look, not so heavy and strong like we have in the previous generation. Last but not least, let's have a look at the interiors, and it is a bit of an upgrade. It's almost like a facelift of the interior here. We do have a big new massive screen here in the middle. It's just huge. It's like you have a big TV in the middle, and then you have another screen right here as well. None of these, I don't think, are very well integrated in the dash itself. The previous generation had the same philosophy where you have one big rectangular screen. It sits a little bit better inside of the dash than it does in the brand new version. Looks like you have some head-up display going on right here, the technology behind the screen, behind the gauge cluster. And you have a lot of interior lighting here, ambient lighting as you can see, and a lot of carbon fiber since it is the AMG version. I think both of these look great, and if I were to pick one, I would probably pick the new one in this case, because we have a separation between the gauge cluster and the infotainment screen. And I also like this detail right here. Looks a lot cleaner. The air vents, just 4 air vents, very simplistic design and very clear function, while we have more of a old school design or styling for the air vents in the previous generation. And those are my thoughts on the new S63. Let me know what you think below in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.